Hey, everybody, this is Joe Joseph, and this is the DailySheeple.com's news shot. So, to activist post we go. They say government is revoking an off-grid Amish community's religious rights by forcing them to use electricity. Now, we've seen this with many activists or people that just have decided that they want to maximize their freedom from government, for lack of a better term, or just to be self-sufficient. A lot of preppers out there that have become self-sufficient, installing solar electricity in their houses, or perhaps, like solar heaters for hot water, you name it. People are really, now that the technology, we'll say, has made it cheap enough for people to use some of the, especially the solar panels and things like that. You know, people are trying to get off the grid in droves and or get a grid tie-in system that's basically there to augment their electrical usage. But for governments here to come out, and this isn't just, here with the Amish, this is happening all over America. I remember hearing a house in Florida where a lady was told her house would be condemned if she didn't maintain the connection to the grid. She didn't want a connection to the grid. She wanted to be totally off the grid. And to me, it's just an absolute egregious abuse of force and a violation of your right to live freely and happily in this country, which just doesn't exist. That's just all cognitive dissonance at this point. It says here, an Amish community in Warren County, Pennsylvania, has just lost a major battle against the state, which is now requiring them to violate their religious beliefs and use electricity. Despite the Yoder family never causing harm to anyone by not using electricity, the government's forcing them to connect to the grid anyway. Now, at the heart of the Amish religion is the rejection of individualism. The Amish anti-individualist orientation is the motive for rejecting labor-saving technologies that might make one less dependent on their community. Modern innovations like electricity might spark a competition for status goods, which is in direct conflict with the Amish way of life. Therefore, they reject it. And while the Amish lifestyle may seem odd to others, the fact that it causes no harm should mean that no one should be able to force them to change. But sadly, in the land of freedom and democracy, that is not the case. The Yoder family lives entirely off-grid. This off-grid religious lifestyle includes the use of self-composting toilets and old-fashioned privy that didn't require electricity or even running water. Now, had the Yoder family been dumping their raw sewage into the public watershed or something else, like polluting the community, basically in any way, requiring them to hook up to the grid would be more sensible. But that's just not the case. The Yoder family is being required to violate their religious beliefs and go against their long-standing traditions, which have harmed no one, for the mere fact that they're in violation of a city code that requires all property owners to be tied into the grid. Now, for years, the Yoders have successfully fought off the sewer connection requirement. However, they will now be forced to hook up an electric grinder pump. The court ruled that the electric pump is the least intrusive means of connecting to the sewer system. Now, Judge Patricia McCullough voiced the dissent, arguing the Yoders are sincere in their religious-based shunning of electricity. Quote, "I believe the Yoders are being denied their rights to religious freedom," she wrote. The ACLU also weighed in on the ruling, noting that their concern for the Yoders' religious freedoms, as well as the undue burden it now places on them to install the pump, is just another way the government steps on and tramples our sovereign rights, our human rights. Now, Sarah Rose, the senior staff attorney for the ACLU, said that although this case didn't set precedent, it'll undoubtedly be cited in future cases, which may apply to Pennsylvania's Religious Freedom Protection Act. Unfortunately, in the so-called land of the free, the government can and will force you to conform or face consequences. This conformity often hits the innocent Amish communities the hardest, and or preppers too. Let's not forget that, because we've seen how many people that have just decided to not rely on the government God, to be self-sufficient, be vilified for doing so, for actually showing max personal responsibility. They are vilified for it. Let's just remember that in the land of the in the land of the free. Now, I can't really highlight this enough, because I am so sick of people out there that use the terminology that was thrown out by public relations experts and by propagandists like Snowflake, like, prepper, all this kind of stuff, conspiracy theorist. This is all designed, folks, to play into that divide and conquer. And then the government comes in with these little things and they vilify the Amish. Why, those Amish, they're not hooked up to the grid. Why? Because of that, well, your property values are going to go down. Yada, yada, yada. It's all bunkum. It's all baloney. It's all BS. The fact of the matter is, property rights need to be respected. And people's property, you should be able to do with your property what you want, how you want to do it, as long as you're not infringing upon the rights of others. And in this case, the Yoder family was not. They simply were not. And because of this idiotic ordinance out there that so many people are getting caught up in, this isn't just the Amish in Pennsylvania. As I've said before, preppers all over the country are getting vilified and fined and their houses condemned or their dwellings condemned simply because of these asinine city ordinances that say it has to be hooked up to the grid. Why? Because imagine what would happen if you had all these people that shun the grid. Well, then there wouldn't be enough business to support these private corporations to keep on making electricity and supporting a national grid. So they have to force compliance. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough people paying into the system, and they fear the system will collapse, which if it collapses, oh, well, it's just a sign of the times. It's time to move on. Technology's advanced now to the point where we don't need a national grid, perhaps. Maybe it would be smarter. Maybe it would be more beneficial for each household to be independent. And maybe now there is adequate resources to do that, because now the cost has come down due to the advancement of technology. And it doesn't necessarily have to be solar power. There's so many different ways that we can harness free energy or energy at a reduced cost. So why do human beings always cling to traditional ways and means of doing things? I don't know. But I do know that we are certainly holding ourselves back. And it's certainly counterproductive to hold on to the archaic ways that we've educated ourselves, the way we've powered our homes, the way that we've done things, the same way since the 19th century and even before. I think it's time now to advance beyond the things and the power generation system that Nikola Tesla developed in the 19th century. I think it's time to go past that and go beyond that. I'm Joe Joseph. This was thedailysheeple.com's News Shot. Feel free to comment below and visit our website at thedailysheeple.com. #WakeTheFlock Up. Have a great day, everybody.